Welcome back to Small College Conversations. I'm Kristen Eargle. I have an incredible guest today, John Lewandowski, Saginaw Valley State's Vice President in Intercollegiate Athletics. Thanks for being on today.
Kristen, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
About 1 year, you were talking before we get started, about 53 weeks on the job. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
How has this experience matched your expectation of what you thought it would be going in the door?
I got to be honest with you, it's probably exceeded my expectations. You know, it's my first time in the AD chair. I spent 37 years at the FBS level, but it's been a great joy. The buy-in from our student athletes has been incredible, and really what I've spent the first year trying to establish are what I would say are our expectations to create a championship experience. When I interviewed for the job with President George Grant, who he's got about a 10-month head start on me. But we really share the same vision of making SVSU a destination. And so what I told him we would do is establish a championship experience. And when I say that, I mean, we'll provide the resources necessary to help our student athletes, number one, retain them, but number two, and most importantly, graduate them, because that degree is going to serve them better than anything else we can do for them. We're also going to give them a championship experience in competition because we have some incredible facilities here, some great resources. We're in a great recruiting area. We have some great young coaches. We'll provide the opportunity to compete for championships and what I would arguably say is the best conference in Division II, the GLIAC. And then number three, we're going to be championships in our community. They're going to learn the value of giving back and the value of volunteerism. And that's really what the focus has been on for the first 53 months.
And you have an incredible career. You talked about it. You spent a long time at Michigan State. So what attracted you to this role here? You have so much to pull from. I want to dig more into that. But what was it about SVSU that just said, I got to be part of this?
First of all, my career, it's been a blessing. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of Hall of Fame coaches, people that invested in me, mentored me. But what's ironic is I wasn't looking for a job. And Dr. Dave Dowles, who is the athletic director at Lake Superior State, reached out to me and said, John, I've got a job for you to apply for. It's at Saginaw Valley. I think it's one of the premier D2 opportunities in the country. And when I came to visit, when I went through the interview, I was blown away by the facilities. Now, after spending 20 years at Michigan State, obviously I was familiar with the program, but I wasn't familiar with campus or anything else really much about it. I was blown away by the facilities, but more blown away by the people that are here. And when I visited with Dr. Grant at the end of the interview, he said, what questions do you have for me? And I said, Dr. Grant, I only have one. What is your vision for intercollegiate athletics? And he said, John, I want to win, long pause, with integrity. And I said, where do I sign up? And to be honest with you, Kristen, going through the process and talking to my wife, Teresa, about it, I have had so many great mentors, people who took the time to really invest in me, that I felt like I was in a position career-wise, I want to give back. And if I can help this program out for success and set it up for the person who comes in after me, that we've already established something special, that would mean the world to me. But when you have an opportunity to work with Gene Corrigan, was the athletic director for 3 of my 4 years at Notre Dame, who later became one of the great commissioners ever at the ACC. And I worked very closely with Digger Phelps and then Pat Dye, and then you look at Michigan State with Nick Saban, Tom Izzo, Mark D'Antonio, Mark Hollis. Those things impact you. And I just felt like if I could learn from them and what they all have in common, always people especially ask about the coaches, what they have in common. Yeah. Incredible attention to detail, number one. Number two, the investment in the individual. And then number three, the fact that you always put the team or the organization first. And I've always embraced the philosophy of trying to create a relationship that lasts well beyond their competitive careers. So having those relationships where that they pick up the phone and they call you, hey, I've got a new job. I'm moving to this part of the country. I've gotten engaged. I'm getting married. I've been promoted. Those are the things that truly matter. And that's, to me, the thing that's most special about intercollegiate athletics. But I felt like this is a great opportunity for me to give back. Sometimes there are points in people's career where they don't feel comfortable mentoring. I feel very comfortable mentoring. I don't pretend to have all the answers. We're always still learning. But if I can share from some of the moments I have been a part of, that's all I simply wanted to do.
You've seen it done at such a high level for so long. So when you were thinking about putting together your short-term, long-term plans, I'm sure you go, wow, there's so much to pull from. I've seen it done here. I want to pull this. I want to pull this. Ultimately, what did you come up with, and how did you go about this process?
Well, like I said, the greatest part about it is the shared vision with Dr. Grant. And with this position being a vice president's role, I'm on his leadership team. So you're sitting at the table with the other vice presidents and with the provost, and you can help formulate things from the ground level. You can ask questions before they become issues. I embrace the chance that we can play as an athletic department in growing the enrollment here. Obviously, that's what we're in the business for, providing educations. But I want to build an elite program because I think the infrastructure is here, the facilities are here, that we can compete for not only conference championships here, but national championships. So it's about establishing that winning culture and about reinforcing to our student athletes that we're invested in them. The feedback I've gotten in the first 53 weeks on the job, right? It seems like it's such a short period of time, is the student athletes finally feel like they're being valued, that we care and we want to hear what their needs are, what their wants are. It's a much different environment than what I started in 38 years ago. But they have to know that you're invested in them. The old days of where the head coaches, administrators said, we're doing this because this is the way we do this, those are gone. They have to know that you truly are invested in them, not just as a student athlete, but as a person as well.
Talk me through this. What are some of those things that you're looking at now? All right, it's been a year. What are some of the wins? Hey, this is in the right direction. What would that mean?
Well, what was neat was in the spring, we got to start some momentum in terms of winning. The softball team won their third straight conference tournament championship and went to the NCAAs. The baseball team won 41 regular season games, a school record. We hosted the NCAA Midwest Regional. We hosted the Super Regional, lost 2 one-run games. Otherwise, it would have been a trip to the World Series.
Oh, my gosh.
And the women's track team finished 10th in the country. Had an incredible individual athlete in Cheyenne Nesbitt. She graduated as a 17-time All-American, 10-time national champion. She's from Bay City, Michigan, just down the road. So you can come here and realize your dreams. But that winning has really fostered some momentum coming into the fall. Football team is ranked 23rd in the country. We're 5-1. Have a big game against Grand Valley coming up. They're 6-0, undefeated, ranked number 2 in the country, which is a great opportunity for us to get a program win.
You talked about having a seat at the table and great communication and alignment with your president, talking about winning with integrity. How do you see vice versa? How do you see the university also being able to lean on the athletics program?
Well, I think what's great is Dr. Grant understands, acknowledges, and appreciates that athletics is the front porch to the university. And we want to carry that weight. We continue to look at trying to how do we grow enrollment? How do we increase women's participation in sports? So this spring will be the first time we compete at the Division II level in women's lacrosse. Our Board of Control is going to meet next week, and we're going to talk about the addition of flag football. They'll vote on that. The NCAA will have it as a championship sport at the D2 level in 2028. We hope to start it a year in advance, have a coach in place, and then we're actually playing a year before it becomes a championship sport. So just have an opportunity, though, to make sure that all of our stuff is in line. We can talk about, we have one of the top 5 ranked housing for students in America on campus. Housing's been ranked number 1. I think we're now number 3, but still, right there in the ballpark. The university has invested in those facilities. How can you use that to your advantage in terms of recruiting? And then as we look at trying to expand the financial aid packages that we have, in the past, we really haven't been competitive in the portal because we didn't have a mechanism to have a lot of financial resources and scholarships available for transfers. We're working on that right now. So that would open up another door. We could probably easily in the first year add another 50 student athletes on campus. So those are the opportunities to talk about. And when we talk about, in some regard, competing in the area with junior colleges, because the the state is now offering free education for 2 years of college. Having a way to communicate that will freeze our tuition during that time. So when that opportunity comes, either in year 2 or year 3 to transfer, that it's still affordable. And then obviously too, we're all interested in expanding our footprint. Not only do we have to be strong in the region, in this Great Lakes Bay region, which is Saginaw, Midland, Bay City, but expand that brand. Football recruits heavily in Detroit. Obviously, Ohio has got a lot of quality student athletes. So expanding that brand, even thinking about mid-Michigan, which we haven't had a great presence in before, even West Michigan. So again, the focus on making this a destination as opposed to simply an option.
You talked about expanding the brand. That caught my eye. You have such an extensive background in communications and marketing and things like that. What are some of the strategy you're putting together to reach that audience?
Well, obviously in this state, Michigan State and Michigan are the big programs, right? And then the success that the professional teams in Detroit have had, especially with the Tigers and Lions, and don't even have to mention the Red Wings and the Pistons. We have to, from a PR standpoint, we have to be all things to all people, because people consume their information in different ways. So we have to have a strong website. We have to be strong in social media, and we're using social media to expand the brand, which I think we did so well at Michigan State, especially as Nick Saban and Mark D'Antonio and Tom Izzo were building their programs, taking people behind the scenes, telling those human interest stories. You never know what story will resonate with somebody or something will touch somebody's heart. Storytelling is what we do. And again, the daily newspapers are a thing of the past. So it's about being our own media channel, but taking people behind the scenes. And, the other thing too, is you talk about, the future, we've got to reimagine the whole booster club notion. In the past, like everybody else, it's been transactional. Mm-hmm. I donate this, I get these tickets, I get these parking passes, I get this apparel or whatever special access. We have to make it transformative now, so that it's more focused on philanthropy as opposed to the transactional tickets and parking. And that'll be one of the next things on the agenda for us to get taken care of. And we have a new vice president for development, so it's great that we kind of put that formula together.
You spent time at Michigan State, obviously ULM, and a lot of other places. When you think about some things that you saw at that level that you go, we could do that here, what would that be?
I think, in its own way, I think we can adopt all the things where you see the successes. I think celebrating all of our successes. It's not everywhere, but we've got it here where the teams support each other. Sometimes there's almost like a rivalry on campus between programs. Here, there's that camaraderie with the 500 students, and they come out and support each other. And I can't tell you how many student athletes I've talked to this week that are looking forward to the Grand Valley football game. They want to be a part of it. I think that's one thing that, celebrate the successes across all teams. Celebrate the academic successes just like you would the victories. The other thing that's kind of special about being on the president's leadership team is he invited me to sit on the stage with the deans for graduation. Some people only think, well, that's an imposition. You can't get away for the holidays in December and you can't do this in the spring. That's awesome. And we are here for them to graduate. And that's all part of, we talked before we started the interview about embracing the D2 model. Mm-hmm. I want to celebrate the fact that the student athlete model is alive and well at Division II. So those are things that we can do.
All right. I do have to ask you some tough questions, right? So talk to me about some of the pain points that you've seen come up a little bit from being a small regional public institution and athletics needed to be the enrollment driver. Some of those things. What are some things that you go, okay, those are challenges, but I got this. I got a strategy for this. What's come up a little bit on your plate?
You always want to move faster than things really do, right? Number one, there's always going to be some resistance to change when there's a change in leadership, right? We've done these things for how many ever years. So you've got to deal with that a little bit. You have to assess the personnel that you have. Do you have the right people in the right places? And are you setting them up for success? And that takes time. We've played short-handed a little bit from our management team level here in athletics. We're 2 bodies short right now, 2 important roles. So we've got to get those jobs filled so that we're we can better service our coaches and our student athletes. We're all used to wearing many hats at the D2 level. We're probably carrying a little bit more of that burden than we should right now. Right now, I'm overseeing 18 of our 20 sports, which is a challenge, but, nobody's being neglected. That's for sure. Because we're all invested. So some of those things, and again, too, it's changing that mindset with the donors. And I haven't been here long enough to make a great enough impact, but we've got to reach out. The biggest buy-in is from the faculty and staff on campus, which is awesome. A lot of times that's a challenge. We have to do a better job of making people in the community understand why it's important that they support the program, although they may be Michigan State or Michigan fans, that we are part of the fabric of this community. It's important if we're successful. It will drive business to the area. And this goes back to, I think there are opportunities here, Kristen, and I've actually had this conversation with my classmates at Notre Dame, Bubba Cunningham at North Carolina. There are people who are Michigan State or Michigan fans who are a little disenchanted with this FBS model now in the free agency. And the fact that people are jumping for, $2,500 more, $5,000 more at the drop of a hat. What's concerning to me is I have a concern, and I'm sure some are going to say, gosh, that sounds like Tom Izzo. We're going to raise a generation of student athletes that don't have a place to call home. Where do you hang your hat? What colors do you wear? If you don't graduate, and I think time is going to tell, but I think you're going to see a steep drop in graduation rates at the FBS level because they're managing for eligibility right now. They're not managing progress towards a degree or getting the degree. And then number two, the fact that they're making so much money. And here's the other thing too, as a marketing person, this is the one part I haven't figured out. You always hear them talk about the value of the student athlete that's coming out from, I don't care if they're the number one player in Michigan or Ohio or anywhere else. They discount the value of the helmet they're putting on. The value of that Notre Dame helmet or the Michigan State helmet or the Michigan helmet or the Ohio State helmet. What if you took that same student athlete and put them in a ULM helmet or a South Alabama helmet or a Memphis helmet? It's different. And there's no accounting for that. It's all as if that value is all with that one student athlete. That student athlete's value is enhanced by that university they're aligned to too. But I think there is some discontent, dissatisfaction with the fan base at the Division I level. And I'm hoping we can pick off some of those folks that maybe say, you know what, they're doing it the right way. Their focus is on graduating a student athlete. They compete at a high level. The biggest difference, Kristen, at the end of the day is it's the depth of the roster.
Right.
When Mark D'Antonio really got football rolling, the difference was it was players number 25 to 55 that made the difference from where they had been before. And that's the only thing that's lacking here. We have quality players. We have players that are capable of playing in the NFL. So that's the only difference. But I think that there are some opportunities for us to gain some fans that maybe have become disenchanted because they don't recognize the game like I don't recognize the game right now. And then one thing I don't want to see happen, obviously there's a cost for doing business.
Sure.
What I hope does not happen is that the FBS begins to contract and take away the educational opportunities. That's what it's about. These broad-based programs like used to be the definition for the Big Ten and the Pac-12. I don't know how many schools are going to be out there supporting 35 sports anymore, or 25 sports, or even 20 sports. So that's what I hope doesn't happen. I'm afraid it's inevitable because of the way things are going. But I am concerned about, and again, the way the fans love to embrace the alums when they come back. And nobody did a better job than Coach D and Tom Izzo in terms of embracing those former players and having the reunions. Well, what kind of reunions do you have now if the players never graduated or they're only there for a short time? I had a conversation with Kirk Cousins last February before the end of the regular season when the Vikings came to play the Lions. And he mentioned that they had signed a player. This is why he was out with his injury. The Vikings had signed a player. And he asked me, hey, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? And he got to a fifth school. And Kirk, I can't even relate to that. I don't understand that. It's foreign even to the guys who competed at that level. So I hope there are better days ahead. I'd hope that COVID would have provided the great reset for the FBS, but it didn't happen. And I wish everybody there well. I certainly still follow Michigan State closely and get back when I can for Hall of Fame inductions and all that stuff, and try to stay in touch with all those student athletes and coaches. But it's certainly a much different game now than when I was there.
Do you see some of that you're explaining that what's driving Division I? Do you see that impacting D2 in the future?
What I have seen, what's funny is with the transfer portal, we hadn't used that word yet today much. It was transfer portal. So many the FBS programs are looking for the experienced players, right? Plug and play, especially a certain position. Some now it's almost like they're one and done quarterbacks everywhere. Everybody's looking for that person that they hope to strike gold in their final year of eligibility. What we have seen, because we have continued to heavily invest primarily in the high schools, is we're now signing football players who 2-3 years ago would have signed at a MAC school. We're getting them, which obviously upgrades our talent level. And then if we can add that transfer money so we can actually go into portal and get some other players, that will only continue to elevate the talent level as we have as well. We have not seen the mass exodus. We had a couple of baseball players who've now dipped their toes in D1. Time will tell if that was the best thing for them. I think the other thing, too, that sometimes people lose sight of, if you're a player that can play at the professional level, I don't care if it's baseball or football, eyeballs will be on you and you will be seen. Matt LaFleur, who's the head coach of the Packers, is one of our proud alums. Certainly he made a name for himself. We had a bunch of players playing in the league last year. We have an active player on the roster for the Lions right now. So if you're good enough, they're going to find you. The exposure is good enough that they'll be aware of you. Your pro days is when you shine. You'll play against a high level of competition. So those opportunities are all there. But as you and I both know, that's a very small percentage of student athletes have an opportunity to go pro, 2.5%. So we have to give them the tools to be successful after their playing career is over. And even when they go to the pros, the thing is, you get lost in this thing. In the NFL, unless you get to that second contract, it really doesn't matter. Unless you sign that second contract, that's when you really reach that financially, you're well set. The other thing I'm anxious to see over time, because you're starting to see some of the stories now with the name, image, and likeness, the fallout from, well, I didn't realize I was going to have to pay taxes on this. Where will those student athletes be 5 years from now? And will they have a degree? And how much of that will they have left? Or will they have already spent it all? And in that case, have we really served them the best? And again, that's why I love the D2 model, because the student athlete is still the central theme. Retention, graduation is our focus. And yes, we will pursue championships.
You talked about exposure. One of that helpful is FloSports partnership with GLIAC. Talk about the benefits of that and how well that's going.
I think it's been great. And I think obviously our commissioner, Chris Dunbar, was very thoughtful in her process of kind of seeing this was the direction that we needed to go. It's great exposure for all of our sports. We probably spend a little bit more money on cameras and everything else than we used to, because you want to make it such a first-class production, where before, as you know, you go through that phase where just get it on. I think about some of the coverage of the NFL draft where they would do some of the videos, and you're like, is that really broadcast quality? And now people have invested in technology and it looks great, and the Zoom calls look great. And but investing in what that product looks like and what the graphics package looks like, but the exposure for all the sports across the board has been outstanding. And the other thing I love too, I think we're very conscious at the D2 level of the importance of regional, not only the conference rivalries, the regional rivalries, having some sanity to the travel expenses, because as you know, the travel expenses have gone up so much in the last couple of years. It's important to keep that in mind as you put it together. Plus, you want the parents to go be able to see the student athletes play. That's the other thing that concerns me about the FBS level. You know, you see some of these volleyball matches, and you got volleyball players from the West Coast going to East Coast going to West Coast. How many parents have now been left behind, and they can't do that? Yes, they can watch them on either TV or on the stream, but that's not the same as in terms of physically being there and having that personal experience with your son or daughter after a great win, or being there even at that moment where it was a difficult loss, but you're there to share that moment with them. Those are things that are all lacking now.
Some of the challenges that your counterparts face, obviously, is staffing specifically athletic trainers. And I noticed you have a partnership with Covenant Healthcare. How has that been? How do you foster that? Has that been a good thing for you guys? Would you promote that to your counterparts?
100% I would. They're a great partner for us. They fully fund a training position and an assistant strength and conditioning coach, which is so important. Those people, that's the other thing I would say after 38 years, when you look at the relationships, a lot of times the student athletes will tell you the most valued ones are with the trainers and the strength coaches, because they spend more time with them than even the head coaches do or the assistant coaches. That's just reality. So you have to be competitive in that area. The biggest thing that we're all struggling with right now is being competitive from a salary standpoint, and also then the quality of life. And as we continue to add sports, now the workload becomes greater unless you add additional bodies in that area. But in strength and conditioning and also in training, you get what you pay for. You don't want to make sacrifices in that area. So that's the one thing we're all going to have to address is how do we remain competitive? How do we make sure that we have the proper staffing in those areas, stay ahead of the curve a little bit, because you've got to, when the parents hand those student athletes over to you, you need to assure them that they're going to get quality health care. And now that's not just in the training room, that it's also in the mental health area. And that's one area too, I think the SVSU really excels. And in fact, we had our last all department staff meeting just a week ago. I reminded all the coaches, this is that time of year we really need to keep focused on, is anybody's actions off a little bit? Is their temperament changed any? You're midway through the semester. Some may be really struggling in their particular major. Some may be hesitant to call mom and dad and tell them that they've changed majors for the third time. Some incoming newcomers may not be playing as much as they had hoped to at this point in time. So this is a time of year where they start feeling the pressure a little bit, and you really have to be proactive and keep your eye open to see maybe any changes in behavior, because we do have to take care of them.
Final question for you, John. What's on your plate in the next 90 days?
What's on a plate in the next 90 days? Hopefully we're chasing some fall championships for sure. I definitely want to get those 2 positions filled, Kristen. So we're looking for a associate AD for compliance services, and we're looking for a deputy AD to help us with not only managing the budget, but really helping with strategic planning, because that's always going to be an ongoing thing. But then also, obviously, we're going to be starting to set some priorities for us in terms of fundraising, short-term, long-term goals. That's an ongoing process. And the one thing we'll continue to work at, especially in my case with just being 53 weeks on a job, continuing to try to reach out to football alums, not only when they come to campus, but when we go on the road, and also making a point to get out and get to as many other activities as we can to reconnect with alums who maybe can't get back as often as they would like. And it's certainly when I'm traveling, trying to reach out to those and just saying, hey, we're here. You're important to us. The experience you had before matters. And that's the one thing you have to always sometimes overcome. Sometimes maybe the sport that you played, maybe there was a change in coaching and whoever you supported didn't get the job. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're all still part of the Cardinal family. And I think we have to work towards getting beyond that. And there have been some sports that there's been a little resistance there because their supported candidate didn't get a job. But at the end of the day, they played an important role. They put their footprints in the sand for the student athletes we now have. And that marriage is so important to keep alive, because the past is often the greatest indicator of future success. But the unique thing about athletics is it's all intertwined. And that's certainly the relationship part of it is certainly what I value the most.
John, it's been a joy. I've loved hearing your perspective and vision. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time.